Psychology says people who talk out loud to themselves are often misunderstood. They're labeled as strange, unstable, socially awkward. Some people even assume it's a sign of mental weakness. But science tells a very different story. People who talk to themselves are not crazy. They're not mentally unstable. And they're definitely not losing their mind. In fact, in many cases, it's the opposite. Talking to yourself is often a sign of a highly active, eagerly organized, and highly self-aware brain. A mind that doesn't drift passively through thoughts, but actively engages with them. If you've ever found yourself whispering while thinking, narrating your actions, debating ideas out loud, or having full conversations with yourself when you're alone, this video is for you. Because there are real psychological reasons behind this habit. And once you let's start with the foundation. Your brain is moving so fast that silence isn't enough to organize it. For many people, thoughts drift slowly. They remain abstract, unstructured, vague. But for people who talk to themselves, thoughts come quickly, often all at once. Ideas overlap, connections form rapidly, scenarios play out in real time. Silence can't hold that much activity, so your brain does something intelligent. It gives thoughts a voice. When you speak out loud, you slow your thinking just enough to make it manageable. You create order out of mental chaos. You turn invisible processes into something real. Sound becomes a tool for control. This is why talking to yourself often feels grounding, rather than unsettling. It's your brain regulating its own speed. Stand 'em. You'll realize it's not a flaw. It's a feature. The first psychological reason people talk to themselves is simple but powerful. Your mind craves clarity. Contrary to popular belief, people who talk to themselves are not hallucinating conversations. They are externalizing thoughts. Psychologists have studied this for decades. Research shows that when you vocalize a thought, it becomes tangible. It moves from the abstract world of imagination into the physical world. Once spoken, a thought can be examined, challenged, reorganized, improved instead of bouncing around chaotically in your head. It becomes something you can interact with. Most people live inside mental fog, a mix of emotions, half-formed ideas, and unspoken assumptions. But your brain doesn't tolerate fog that it wants structure. By speaking your thoughts, you give them form. You transform confusion into language. You turn emotion into logic. You turn instinct into understanding. You're not struggling to think. You're thinking so deeply that silence isn't enough to contain it. This also explains why people who talk to themselves often argue internally. You don't just accept ideas. You question them. You test them. You push back. When you speak an idea out loud, you immediately hear its flaws. Weak logic becomes obvious. Contradictions reveal themselves. Better solutions emerge. This internal debate is a sign of highly cognitive processing. Your brain doesn't settle for the first answer. It wants the best one. That's why talking to yourself often leads to breakthroughs. Not confusion, but clarity alone doesn't explain everything. Because people don't only talk to themselves during deep thinking. They talk to themselves while looking for keys, searching for their phone, solving puzzles, planning tasks, organizing daily routines. That brings us to trait number 2. When you say keys or phone out loud, something fascinating happens inside your brain. Research shows that speaking the name of an object activates the visual cortex. This process is known in psychology as stimulus upregulation. In simple terms, your brain increases the signal strength of what you're searching for. You're not just thinking about the object. You're enhancing your ability to see it. Your mind filters out distractions more effectively. Your attention sharpens, your perception becomes more precise. This is why people who talk to themselves often find things faster. While others wander around distracted, your brain switches into search mode. You're not making noise. You're optimizing performance. Your brain works like a search engine, and your voice is the command input. Efficiency matters to you. Studies have shown that people who talk themselves through tasks perform better, especially under pressure. Athletes do this. Surgeons do this. Pilots do this, elite performers across industries do this. Helps maintain focus, reduce errors, increase accuracy, improve decision-making. You're not distracted by your voice. You re-guided B, Italiano. Now we move into deeper psychological territory. Many people who talk to themselves don't just narrate tasks. They speak in the second or third person. You might say, "Come on, you can do this." Why did you react like that? Calm down. Think. Psychology calls this distanced self-talk. And it's a sign of emotional intelligence. When you talk to yourself this way, you create psychological distance from your emotions. Instead of being overwhelmed by stress, you observe it. Instead of drowning in anxiety, you manage Italiano. Instead of panicking, you coach yourself. Research shows that distanced self-talk reduces emotional reactivity and improves emotional control. You don't suppress feelings, you regulate them. This habit allows you to calm yourself down, motivate yourself forward, correct your behavior, reflect. Without judgment, don't rely on others to stabilize you emotionally. You've learned how to do it yourself. This is why people who talk to themselves often appear calm under pressure. They're not emotionless or emotionally skilled. They know how to talk themselves through chaos. Now let's talk about memory. People who talk to themselves often retain information better. This isn't accidental. Psychologists call this the production effect. When you speak information out loud, your brain creates a stronger memory trace than when you think silently. Speaking forces your brain to include information more deeply engage. Multiple sensory systems mark the information as important to your brain, essentially says, "This matters. Save this." This is why students who read aloud remember more. Why people repeat instructions to themselves. Why verbal rehearsal improves recall. You're not repeating things randomly. You're saving them. So what does all of this mean? If you talk out loud when you're alone, it doesn't mean you're weird. It means your mind is highly active performance engine, and your voice is the exhaust system that prevents overload. You're not malfunctioning. You're optimized. Unfortunately, society often misunderstands internal complexity. Silence is seen as normal. External expression is seen as strange. But intelligence doesn't always look quiet. Some minds work internally. Others need external channels. Neither is wrong, but talking to yourself has been unfairly stigmatized. In reality, it's often the mark of a reflective, analytical, and emotionally mature person. So here's the truth you need to remember. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not losing your mind. You're operating at a higher level of cognitive and emotional awareness. And your voice is simply how your brain stays balanced. If you've ever had full conversations with yourself, drop A in the comments. And if you enjoy psychology that explains what others never notice, subscribe, because the next video might finally explain why you overthink everything.